Good morning, dear students. Hope you are staying safe and healthy through these unusual times. Take good care of yourself. Okay. Today we will discuss a new chapter, the last chapter of our first blog, titled Horegallu by Sudha Murty. You may take page number 26. The title Horegallu appears to be very special. Yes, it is a special chapter on a special theme written by a special writer. Horegallu is a simple anecdote, a deceptively simple anecdote written by one of the most popular and endured authors in Indian English literature, Sudha Murty. Sudha Murty needs no introduction. She is India's best-selling writer, known to be writing for the majority that converses and communicates in layman English. Her themes, language and style are simply unpretentious, written in simple English. Reader easily comprehends it without a dictionary. She abstains from flowery artificial language and writes in simple English. She has authored a number of books, which include short stories, non-fictional stories, novels, travelogues, technical books, and books for children too. Her books have been translated into all major Indian languages. And she also writes in Kannada. She writes in English as well as in Kannada. So that is a speciality of Sudha Murty as a writer. More than a writer, Sudha Murty is a philanthropist, a social worker. Currently, she is the chairperson of Infosys Foundation, based in Karnataka, established in 1996 by Infosys Company. It is a foundation which aims to make a positive change in the society. It is a foundation started to support the underprivileged people of India, the poor sections, the people of India. See, and Sudha Murty is the chairperson of this foundation, and it was started by Infosys Company. She is the wife of a very special person. She is the wife of an Indian billionaire businessman who is considered to be the father of Indian IT sector. The founder, the co-founder of Infosys Company, the chairman emeritus, N.R. Narayana Murty. So she is the wife of N.R. Narayana Murty, who is the co-founder of Infosys Company. And Sudha Murty is the chairperson of Infosys Foundation. And she has also founded several orphanages and has participated in rural development activities. She also supported Karnataka government to introduce library facilities and computer facilities in almost all the schools in Karnataka. Her vision of setting up libraries has resulted in setting up 50,000 libraries so far. And through Infosys Foundation, she has built 2,300 houses in flood affected areas. So she is such a great social worker. Okay, now let's think about her professional career. She began her professional career in computer science and engineering. And she has become the first female engineer to join India's largest auto manufacturer, Telco or Tata Motors. She was the first female engineer to join that company. But after a few years, she resigned from the company in order to help her husband to start a new company, and that was Infosys. Okay. When she resigned from that company, she got a valuable advice from the chairman of Tata company, J.R.D. Tata. She believed in that advice, and this was advice given by J.R.D. Tata to Sudha Murty. He said, "You are only a trustee of money. Money changes hands. When you become successful, give it back to the society which gave you goodwill." What's the meaning? We are only trustees of money, isn't it? So it changes hands. We will have to give it back to the society. That is what Sudha Murty is doing throughout her life, helping the poor people of India. A philanthropist. She is also a recipient of plenty of awards, including R.K. Narayanan Award for Literature and the India's fourth highest civilian award. The fourth highest Indian civilian award, that is Padma Shri. So Sudha Murty is a role model for all generations. As an author, as a teacher, she is a teacher also. She is teaching engineering students. A social worker, a chairperson of Infosys Foundation, a writer. So I hope now you have an idea of the great personality of Sudha Murty. Now let's come to our chapter Horegallu. Horegallu is an anecdote. Now, what is an anecdote? Anecdote is the record of real incidents in the life of people who are real. It's a record of real incidents, or it can be considered as a short story based on true incidents from author's life. It is presented as a recounting of real incidents involving real persons. In most anecdotes, author talks about his past. And usually, commonly anecdotes are amusing and thought-provoking in nature. Horegallu is a best example of an inspirational anecdote. It conveys a very good message. Very fondly does Sudha Murty recollects her long past experiences. Horegallu is an impassioned reminiscence of her golden childhood, her good old days. In this story, she recreates two persons whom she values so much. Actually, Murty is from a small village in Karnataka, and her favorite person is her own grandfather. So the two persons she recreates in this anecdote are, first is her own grandfather, a retired schoolmaster, and her colleague named Ratna. Colleague means a co-worker. So Ratna was her co-worker at an IT company. So she talks about these two persons, real persons. You could meet these two persons in this chapter. And she associates, Sudha Murty associates her grandfather and her colleague Ratna to that of a Horegallu. Now let's come to the word Horegallu. What is a Horegallu? Horegallu is simply a stone bench. It is a kind of a seating arrangement, usually seen in villages. Horegallu is a stone bench made of 3 stones. A large flat stone placed horizontally over 2 vertical ones, thus making it a stone bench. So what's the purpose of a bench? You can sit and relax, isn't it? Horegallus are usually found in villages and under trees. And it provides a space, a place for the poor farmers, the travelers, to unload their burden, their baggage, to take rest, to relax, to chat with their fellow travelers, and to refresh themselves before starting their journey again. We could also see earthen pots filled with cool water near Horegallu. Earthen pots with cool water will be kept near the Horegallu so that the weary travelers, the thirsty travelers, farmers, can drink cool water and quench their thirst while chatting, talking and chatting with their fellow travelers. Here, Horegallu becomes a metaphor. So, Horegallu is a place where you can sit, relax, take rest, which helps us to refresh ourselves, isn't it? Horegallu literally means a stone that can bear weight. Horegallus are found under trees in villages where travelers can rest in between their journey or work. The Malayalam equivalent of Horegallu is Chumadithani or Attani. Or it is a stone bench, isn't it? A Horegallu is a stone bench that can bear weight. Or it's a place where travelers can unload their burden and can take rest in between their journey or work. So in between their journey, they may drop their burden and they may take rest, isn't it? They can take rest and they are relaxed. Our life is a journey and we all are heavily burdened. Everyone needs a Horegallu in their life's journey. Or a Horegallu is essential in everyone's life. We all are burdened, heavily burdened. We carry burdens. All of us carry burdens. We have many problems. According to our capacities and situations, we carry burdens. So once in a while, we need to put down our burden. we need to drop this burden and to take rest. Only then we will get the strength to pick up the load and continue our journey and resume the journey. So, Horegallu provides us an opportunity to do so. It gives us an opportunity to unload our burden, to put our burden, to lighten our burden, to relax ourselves. Isn't it? So here, Horegallu becomes a simple. Horegallu stands for certain persons with whom we could share our burdens. A Horegallu could be a person who is ready to bear our burden. Horegallu could be a person who is ready to spend and spare his time with us to listen to our problems. A person who is ready to listen to us. Isn't it? It's a human need. We always feel we want somebody to listen to us. And there should be someone who could understand us, who could hear us. Isn't it? So such a kind of a patient listener can be considered as a Horegallu. A trustworthy person, a confidant with whom we could confide our problems, our sorrows, our secrets. And that one is a Horegallu. And by sharing our problem, sharing is always caring, isn't it? So by sharing our problems, we are relieved of our burden. See, just imagine a person is under stress or strain. And when he finds an outlet to pour out his burden, that itself relieves half his burden. Listening is a solution to many problems in this world. But it's not well utilized. Most of it's not utilized. We are not ready to listen to others. We always love to talk instead of listening, isn't it? So this is a message of this small, beautiful anecdote. That is why it's considered to be a thought-provoking anecdote, which is based on the author's own life, real life experiences, and based on real persons. So here in this chapter, Sudha Murty associates Horegallu to that of her grandfather and her colleague Ratna, or her grandfather, who was a retired school teacher, and her friend, colleague Ratna, is compared to Horegallus. Okay. Now let's think about the whole chapter, or here is a small summary of the chapter. Horegallu features in the childhood memories of the author. Or she begins from this phase of her life. The chapter begins from her childhood. Very fondly does she remember the beautiful good olden days that she spent in her native Kannada village, when she loved to have fun, when she loved to have frolic in the shade of that magnificent banyan tree, which exactly looked like a massive umbrella. So she belongs to a small village in Karnataka, and right in the middle of the village there was a huge banyan tree. And children, she with her friends used to play in the shade of this tree. It was like a huge umbrella. Then comes the Horegallu, the stone bench. She thinks about that Horegallu. She recalls that precious Horegallu, that stone bench beside the banyan tree, where travelers, mostly farmers, the weary travelers, duly kept their burden. their baggage. It was a place where they could come and take rest. They could drop their burden in between their work or in between their journey. It was a place to relax. And Horegallu very evidently relieved them of their tedium. They were relieved of their burden. And the pot of water that quenched the thirst. And a pot of water was kept, cool water was kept beside the Horegallu. And that quenched their thirst. Refreshed, rejuvenated, the travelers, the farmers could resume their journey, now in strengthened spirits. Then comes her grandfather who was a retired schoolmaster, used to spend his time under the shade, in the shade of the tree on the Horegallu, chatting and talking with the weary, tired, poor farmers who had lot many things to share with him. And after talking with her grandfather, they seemed to be relieved of their burden. So here the grandfather functions like a Horegallu. Actually, he never gave any kind of suggestions or solutions to their problems. He simply listened to them, and that was enough. Her grandfather spent considerable share of his spare time in the shade of the tree, sitting on the Horegallu, patiently listening to the worries and complaints of the worn-out farmers or travelers. The farmers are worn out physically due to travel or work, and mentally due to problems of life. And he would listen to them patiently. After talking with him, they were relieved. And this act from his part, or this gesture from his part, brought comfort to them. And they could resume their journey after enlivening themselves, as they could share their worries with someone. As a child, the writer couldn't fully comprehend the importance of this act, the greatness, the grandeur of this act. And the farmers addressed him as Master Ji. They would say, Master Ji, this summer has been very hot. Oh Master Ji, it's very difficult for me to carry the load. Thank God for this Horegallu. And she couldn't even understand the importance of Horegallu. Why people blessed it so often. And it was the grandfather who explained to her, child, a Horegallu is very important in any journey. All of us are heavily burdened. Everyone needs a Horegallu. Everyone needs a good, trustworthy, confident, a friend with whom we could share our problems, our worries. Only then we will be refreshed, relaxed, rejuvenated, strengthened to continue our life's journey. So here, grandfather was doing that, listening to the problems and the people sharing. And indeed, grandfather has become a metaphorical replica of a Horegallu. Are we Horegallus? Can we become Horegallus? Yes, why not? So that is the role of grandfather in the story. Now we are going to meet the second character. In the second part of the story, the readers are allowed to time travel to her youth. Later, when she was working in Mumbai, when Sudha Murty was working in Mumbai, she got to see something that reminded her of that stone bench Horegallu once again. And that was her colleague, her fellow worker named Ratna, a senior clerk of the company, a middle-aged woman, always smiling, working in the company for 25 years, doing the same repetitive, mundane, irritating job with infectious cheerfulness. Her cheerfulness is described as infectious because simply her genial presence could make others happy and cheerful. That was Ratna. She could see Ratna entertaining long chats of her fellow workers during intervals. Ratna was found to entertain long chats of her fellow workers. She would sit during lunch hour with a different person, and would have long chats with him. And our author, Sudha Murty, she felt a bit bored. She went forward and made inquiries with Ratna. She asked Ratna, actually, what do you talk with each person for the whole lunch hour? The reply of Ratna was surprising. Ratna replied, they share their troubles with me. I only listen. God has given me 2 ears to listen to others. I hear them with sympathy, not with any kind of judgment, without any judgment. When a person under stress finds an outlet to pour out his worries, that itself relieves half his burden. So listening is a solution to many of our problems. So that was a vision of Ratna about the magical effect of listening. The encounter with Ratna proved to be an eye-opener to our author, who was instantly reminded of the Horegallu and the metaphorical replica, her own grandfather. And she feels that, Sudha Murty feels that it is a universal human need to have someone to lean on and to confide life's problems with. Sudha Murty feels that we need to have a person to share our problems with, and that is a universal need, a human need to feel heard and understood. Author winds up by wishing for more earnest souls taking up this noble vocation. Or she concludes by saying like this, I wish if there were more Horegallus in this world. I wish if you could become a Horegallu, if there were more such Horegallus. Abraham Lincoln wrote a letter to his son's teacher. He said, Teacher, it is your duty to instill in my son all these qualities. Let me quote a line from that letter. Teach him to listen to all men. Teach him to listen to all men. Teacher, it is your duty to make my son a good listener. Which means we have to become good listeners. But listening is a very difficult task. But it's a powerful tool which is not well utilized. True listening is a rare skill. See, if you could listen to your friend without being irritated, without making any judgment, you give him a wonderful gift. The more he is able to express himself, the more he feels heard and understood, the more he is relieved. You become his trustworthy friend. You become his confidant, and you could win his heart very easily. Listening is a gateway to building relationships. And if you have such a kind of a friend with whom you could share everything, someone who takes time to listen to you when you are at your lowest, he should be valued. That friend should be valued. See, people don't always need advice. People do need advice. Sometimes what they really need is a hand to hold, an ear to listen, and a heart to understand them. And that is what is Horegallu is. So what is a Horegallu then? Horegallu is that person who makes you feel happy and good. A person who could make you feel happy and good is the Horegallu. Now let's wind up this session by a beautiful quote of a French novelist, Marcel Proust. Marcel Proust said, and learn this chord by heart, by your heart. Okay. This is a chord. Let us be grateful to the people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our soul blossom. I repeat, let us be grateful to the people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our soul blossom. Try to be such charming gardeners. Try to become Horegallus. Let us be inspired and spread the legacy of selfless and unconditional caring, concern and compassion. But to begin with, let us be sincere and trustworthy listeners. This is a message and theme of this simple, beautiful anecdote, Horegallu. Be good listeners. Be trustworthy listeners. Be sincere, confident. Okay, I hope the chapter is clear to you. Detailed notes of the chapter and an interview with Sudha Murty are uploaded in the comment box.